December 2025. While you were shopping for Christmas presents and wondering if you'd ever afford a house, something absolutely insane happened in the silver market. Something that should have been front-page news on every financial publication in the world. In just for trading days, 460% of COMEX's registered silver inventory was claimed for physical delivery. So what? You're thinking, what even is COMEX? And why should I care about silver? Because 8 banks just paid $1.27 billion in fines for manipulating this market. 2 JPMorgan traders are literally sitting in federal prison right now for fraud. And the price of silver just did something that Wall Street's biggest banks said was impossible. In 2025, silver rallied 147%, peaking at $83.64 per ounce. Goldman Sachs predicted it would average $32. Citibank said $36. JPMorgan said $38. They weren't just wrong, they were catastrophically, hilariously, suspiciously wrong. And now, as physical silver disappears from exchange vaults faster than toilet paper in March 2020, we're about to witness the greatest financial scandal of the decade unravel in real time. This is the story of how Wall Street built a casino on top of a metal they do actually own, and how that casino is about to burn down. Welcome to the Silver Squeeze. Population, you're about to get an education. Let's start with the basics, because this gets deliciously criminal real fast. Silver isn't just shiny jewelry, it's in your phone, your car, your solar panels, every electrical switch, and every photovoltaic cell. Silver has the highest electrical conductivity of all metals, which makes it absolutely essential for modern technology. Global silver mine production in 2023 reached approximately 830 million ounces. That sounds like a lot until you realize that's worth about $20 billion at current prices. For context, that's less than what major currency pairs trade in a few hours. The entire annual silver production is a rounding error in global finance. But here's where it gets interesting. Paper trading volume in silver can exceed an entire year's worth of global mine production. In just a few trading sessions, read that again. Traders are buying and selling on paper more silver in a few days than physically exists from mining in an entire year. It's like a casino where there's $10 million in chips on the tables, but only $100,000 in actual cash in the vault. Works great, until everyone wants to cash out at the same time. Enter COMEX, the commodity exchange, where silver futures trade. They have 2 types of inventory: registered metal that's available for delivery against futures contracts, the real deal, the stuff people can actually claim; eligible metal that meets quality standards but isn't available for delivery. It's just sitting there, in the vault. Technically exists, but you can't have it. COMEX warehouse stocks typically range between 280 to 320 million ounces total. But here, as the kicker, only a fraction of that is registered, actually available for delivery. And in December 2025, something unprecedented happened. December 2025, the first 4 trading days, 47.6 million ounces of registered silver was claimed for delivery. That's 60% of COMEX's registered inventory. Gone in less than a week. Not sold, not transferred on paper, actually removed. Physical metal, out the door. Goodbye. To put this in perspective, this was unprecedented. Never in the history of COMEX had so much metal been pulled out so fast. It was a bank run, except instead of panicked grandmas withdrawing their savings, it was sophisticated institutions saying, "We'll take the actual metal now. Thank you very much." And it didn't stop there. In just 7 days in January 2026, another 33.45 million ounces were physically withdrawn. That's 26% of COMEX's registered inventory. Gone. Again, the pool of actually deliverable, fully eligible silver is now much smaller than the headline figures suggest, and the market knows it. Silver lease rates, the cost to borrow silver for short-term periods, normally sit around 0.3% to 0.5% annually. During market stress, they can spike. By January 2026, lease rates had exploded to around 8%. 8%. Think about what that means. Someone is willing to pay 8% annually just to borrow silver to ensure they can deliver on time. That's higher than most credit cards charge in a stable market. Higher than most mortgages just to borrow metal. Why would anyone pay that much? Because not having the silver is worse than paying 8% to get it. That's not a functioning market. That's a market on the edge of collapse. Now, some of you might be thinking, maybe this is just normal market volatility, supply and demand, economics 101. Yeah, about that. Let me introduce you to Michael Novak and Greg Smith. Michael Novak ran JPMorgan's Global Precious Metals desk. Greg Smith was described by prosecutors as the most prolific spoofer that the government has prosecuted to date. In August 2023, both were sentenced to federal prison. Novak got 1 year and 1 day. Smith got 2 years for fraud, attempted price manipulation, and spoofing. What's spoofing? Great question. Between May 2008 and August 2016, these traders engaged in tens of thousands of deceptive trading sequences. They placed orders for silver futures contracts that they intended to cancel before execution to drive prices on orders they intended to execute on the opposite side of the market. Translation: they put in fake buy orders to make the market think there was demand, driving the price up. Then they'd sell at the inflated price, then cancel the fake orders before anyone could fill them. Or the reverse fake sell orders to crash the price, buy at the bottom, then cancel the fake orders. It's like bidding on an eBay auction with no intention of paying, just to drive up the price for your friend who's actually selling. Except instead of eBay, it's a multi-trillion-dollar financial market, and instead of collectibles, it's a critical industrial metal. In September 2020, JPMorgan admitted to committing wire fraud and paid a total of $920.2 million, the largest amount of monetary relief ever imposed by the CFTC, $920 million, for manipulating silver and gold, platinum, palladium, and treasury markets. But wait, there's more. 8 banks total paid $1.27 billion in fines for manipulation. Deutsche Bank, Bank of America, Scotiabank, Morgan Stanley, the whole gang's here. The federal judge didn't mince words. For many years, you injected fraud into the market, he told the traders. You told many lies to the market. And here's what makes this absolutely delicious. These convictions were for crimes committed between 2008 and 2016. That ended 9 years ago. So what happened after the manipulation supposedly stopped in 2016? What happened once the thumb came off the scale? Well, silver went from $14 in early 2024 to $83.64 in December 2025. A 147% increase, almost as if the price had been artificially suppressed for years. Wild. All right, now that you understand that major banks literally went to prison for rigging this market, let's talk about how the scam actually works. You know how banks don't actually have all your deposit money sitting in a vault? They lend most of it out, keeping just a small fraction as reserves. That's fractional reserve banking. Now imagine that, but for silver, except worse. The COMEX futures market operates on a system where registered warehouse stocks back multiple paper claims. Most silver trades on COMEX are just paper contracts that never result in physical delivery. Traders speculate on price movements and cash settle. They never touch actual metal. This works fine when everyone's playing by the same rules. The problem is, the system is designed to discourage physical delivery. Want to take physical delivery of silver from COMEX? Here's what you need. A futures contract standing for Delivery Approved Warehouse Receipt Payment at Settlement Price. Ability to transport and store thousands of ounces. Oh, and once metal leaves COMEX, it requires complete reassaying to re-enter the system. It's costly and time-consuming. This creates massive friction against the free flow of metal back into the exchange once it departs. In other words, it's a one-way door. Metal that leaves COMEX likely represents a permanent removal from the trading ecosystem, which means the float of available silver keeps shrinking while paper contracts keep trading like nothing's wrong. Remember our casino metaphor. Imagine if every time someone cashed out, the casino couldn't get that money back. Eventually, you run out of money to pay the remaining chip holders. That's where we are now. So we've established that the COMEX runs on paper contracts backed by dwindling physical metal. Now let's talk about what happens when paper and physical prices divorce. By late 2025, a massive Great Divorce emerged between artificial New York paper prices and physical reality in the East. Paper prices were pushed to $70 in one market, while physical premiums in Shanghai hit $8 per ounce over spot, $8 premium. That means people in China are paying $8 more per ounce than the official COMEX paper price just to get physical metal. Physical silver premiums typically range from 5 to 15% over spot prices under normal conditions. During 2024 to 2025, premiums expanded to 20 to 50% for retail products like American Silver Eagles. American Silver Eagles were carrying premiums of $4 to $8 per ounce over spot in 2024, while generic rounds and bars ranged from $2 to $4 over spot. Think about that, you can buy silver on paper for $30. But to actually get a physical coin in your hand costs you $38. That's a 27% premium. For the privilege of owning something real instead of a digital promise. In practice, the global silver market has split into three islands: Asia, primarily China, and India. North America centered on COMEX, and Europe centered on LBMA. Each region is fighting over whatever metal it can control. And then there's the term structure. In normal markets, longer-dated futures trade at a slight premium to near-term contracts. You pay extra for storage, insurance, and the luxury of waiting. Starting in late 2025, the silver curve flipped. Nearby contracts became more expensive than deferred ones. That's called backwardation, and it's a huge red flag. It means the market is screaming, "We need silver now, not later now." People are willing to pay more to get metal today than to get it in 6 months, because they're not confident 6 months from now there will be any metal to deliver. Now, let me tell you a story about what happens when you bet on paper silver while the physical market is burning down. Rajkot, India, a major hub for silver trading. January 2026, 44 silver trading firms officially declared insolvency. Total liabilities close to $425 million. 44 firms. Gone. Bankrupt. Wiped out. These weren't amateurs. These were established trading companies that had been in business for years. They understood the market. They knew the players. They thought they knew the game. And they got absolutely annihilated. Here's what happened. These firms were gamblers who bet on the bank's promises about silver. They held paper contracts. They traded on margin. They assumed, like everyone else, that if things went south, they could always settle in cash or roll their positions forward. Then the physical market exploded. Demand surged. The paper price got smashed in one direction, while physical premiums soared in another. The firms got caught in a whipsaw, violent price movements in both directions that destroyed their positions. And then, the kill switch. The CME, which runs COMEX, announced margin hikes. Suddenly, these firms needed way more capital to maintain their positions. Capital they didn't have. Because they were UN trading real metal, they were trading paper contracts that assumed everything would stay liquid and orderly. One firm failed, then another, then another. 44 total. A domino collapse. All because they trusted that paper prices reflected reality. The message was clear. If you don't have physical metal, you're gambling. And when the music stops, there aren't enough chairs. Remember those price predictions from Wall Street's finest? Let's revisit those, shall we? Goldman Sachs, February 2025, silver will average $32 to $35 per ounce for the year. Citibank, January 2025, silver will average $36 to $38 per ounce for the year. JPMorgan, January 2026, programmatic min reversion and index rebalancing will likely exert downward pressure on silver. Actual result, silver peaked at $83.64 in December 2025, a 147% increase, more than double what every major bank predicted. Now, you might think, they're analysts. They got it wrong. It happens, except this isn't the first time, or the second, or the 10th. These same banks have consistently, systematically underestimated silver prices for years, every single time. And here's the part that really bake your noodle. Some of these same banks are major players in the silver futures market. JPMorgan, for instance, flipped from being massively short silver betting, prices would fall, to being net long betting, prices would rise. Current position, as of December 2025, JPMorgan held substantial silver positions. COMEX proprietary plus brokerage estimated approximately 196 million ounces, SLV ETF custody, estimated approximately 517 million ounces. So, let me get this straight. JPMorgan manipulated silver markets for 8 years, 2008 to 2016, paid $920 million in fines. Sent to traders to prison, now holds 700 million ounces of silver, and told you prices would be half of what they actually became. You starting to see a pattern here? Here's what actually happened. For years, banks manipulated silver prices downward through spoofing. They accumulated physical silver at artificially low prices. They faced enforcement action. The manipulation stopped. Prices exploded. They made billions. It's the perfect crime. Get caught? Pay a fine that's a fraction of your profits. No executives go to jail, just traders, and you're now sitting on metal you bought cheap that's worth 3 to 5x more. The fine was $920 million. JPMorgan's silver position is worth, well, at $30 Oz, 700 million ounces is $21 billion. Even if they paid the fine, they're up $20 billion. Crime literally pays. But here's where it gets really interesting, because now those same banks face a different problem. Let's talk about why silver started disappearing from vaults in the first place. Between 2021 and 2025, the silver market ran in deficit for 5 consecutive years. Cumulative shortfall, approximately 820 million ounces. Mine production has declined by 7% since 2016. That's the supply side shrinking. Meanwhile, industrial demand accounts for 59% of total silver usage. And it's accelerating. Solar panel production alone consumed 120 million ounces of silver in 2024, with projections showing 15% annual growth through 2030. Electric vehicles use significantly more silver than traditional cars. Every EV contains about 25 to 50 grams of silver in various components. As EV adoption explodes, silver demand explodes with its 5G infrastructure. Electronics, medical applications. Silver is everywhere in modern technology because nothing conducts electricity better. So you have declining mining production, exploding industrial demand, and 5 consecutive years of deficits totaling 820 million ounces. Where's that missing 820 million ounces coming from? Above-ground stockpiles, investment holdings, scrap recycling, and most importantly, exchange warehouses. Those COMEX and LBMA warehouses we talked about earlier. They're not just storage facilities, they're the buffer, the shock absorber, the strategic reserve that's supposed to smooth out temporary supply-demand imbalances. Except when you drain 60% of registered inventory in 4 days, and then another 26% the next month, that buffer stops buffering. January 2026. Just when you thought things couldn't get weirder. The Bloomberg Commodity Index BCOM does an annual rebalancing. Basically, they adjust the weighting of different commodities in the index based on their price performance over the past year. Silver rallied 147% in 2025. That made its weight in the index too high, according to their methodology. So they had to rebalance, meaning sell silver to bring it back down to the target weight. Citigroup Research, led by strategist Kenny, who estimated that $6.8 billion in silver futures would be sold during the first 2 weeks of January 2026 due to this rebalancing. $6.8 billion in 2 weeks. Kenny, who publicly stated they had never seen any outsized flow like this one in years of running the process. Now, remember, this is forced selling. Index funds have to rebalance to match their mandate. They don't care about the fundamentals. They don't care about supply deficits. They sell because the algorithm says sell, and sell they did. Silver crashed from its highs, dropping sharply in the first weeks of January. The financial media cheered. Silver correction, mean reversion. The bubble pops. But here's what they didn't tell you. While paper prices crashed, physical premiums spiked even higher. The disconnect got worse, not better. Lease rates stayed elevated at 8%. Physical delivery requests kept pouring in, and vault inventories kept draining. The paper price manipulation had become a deadly game. Every time they smashed the price on paper, physical buyers around the world said thank you and bought more at the discount, which drained more metal from vaults, which made the supply situation worse. It's whack-a-mole, except the moles are physical delivery requests and the mallet is price manipulation. And the moles are winning. Now let's talk about the elephant tour. Should I say dragon in the room? China controls approximately 70% of silver processing, 40% directly, and another 30% indirectly. They're not just buyers, they're the supply chain. The Shanghai Futures Exchange, SHFE, launched contracts requiring 99.99% silver purity, higher than COMEX's 99.9% standard, that tiny 0.09% difference. It creates two separate markets. Chinese manufacturers can export lower purity silver to COMEX when needed, but ensure that SHFE deliveries represent 99.99% silver locked within China's industrial ecosystem. It's a one-way valve. Silver flows into China, it doesn't flow back out, and Chinese industrial demand is insatiable. Solar panels, EVs, electronics, all manufactured at scale in China, all consuming massive amounts of silver. Some analysts believe China is building a strategic silver stockpile, similar to their gold accumulation. Official data? Non-existent. But the metal keeps flowing east and not coming back. So you have COMEX draining LBMA, depleting, and China vacuuming up whatever physical silver they can get their hands on. The West trades paper promises the East takes physical delivery. One of these strategies will win. I'll give you 3 guesses which one. So how does this end? Let me walk you through 3 possible scenarios. Scenario 1. The cash settlement endgame. COMEX faces a choice: default on physical delivery or force cash settlements. They choose cash settlements. Suddenly, all those paper contracts that promised physical delivery, were out of metal. Here's cash instead, at whatever price we say. This creates a permanent 2-tier market. Paper silver trades at one price lower, physical silver trades at another, much higher. The paper market becomes irrelevant for price discovery. Confidence in commodity futures evaporates. If they can force cash settlement on silver, what about copper, oil, wheat? The entire commodities complex comes under suspicion. Scenario 2. The price explosion. COMEX and other exchanges refuse to force cash settlement, but there's not enough physical silver to meet delivery demands at current prices. So prices spike, hard fast, a true squeeze. Silver doesn't go to $100, it goes to $150,200, maybe higher. Industrial users panic. Solar manufacturers, EV companies, electronics producers, they all need silver and can't afford to wait. They start paying whatever it takes. The financial stress spreads. Shorts get liquidated. Margin calls cascade. Some institutions fail. Not just silver traders, anyone who is on the wrong side of this trade. And because silver is used as collateral in various financial arrangements, a silver crisis triggers broader financial instability. Scenario 3. The muddle through may be just. Maybe they manage to muddle through. Prices stay elevated. Volatility remains extreme, but no single catastrophic event. Institutions adapt. New supply comes online slowly. Recycling increases. Industrial users substitute where possible. But the market permanently changes. Physical premiums stay high. Trust in paper markets never fully recovers. Silver becomes explicitly 2-tiered. Paper for speculation, physical for actual users and investors. 3 scenarios. All of them involve pain. The only question is, how much pain and who bears it? So what does this mean for you? Let's get practical. First, understand what you own. If you own silver through an ETF or a futures contract, read the fine print. Can they force cash settlement? What happens if physical delivery becomes impossible? The iShares Silver Trust, SLV, the largest silver ETF, held approximately 506 million ounces as of late 2024. That's a lot of metal, but questions persist about whether all ETF holdings are fully backed by physical metal and whether some ETF's metal may be counted multiple times or leased into the market. Translation: some ETFs might be playing the same fractional reserve game as COMEX. If you want exposure to silver, physical is king. Coins, bars, stuff you can hold in your hand. Yes, premiums are high. That's the point. Premiums are high because physical is scarce and paper is abundant. Of course, physical silver requires storage. It's heavy, it's bulky, you need security. But those are features, not bugs. The inconvenience is what makes it real. Now, timing, that's the million-dollar question. Silver just rallied 147%. Trying to catch the bottom or top is a fool's errand. What we know, structural supply deficits aren't going away. Industrial demand is growing. Exchange inventories are depleting. The gap between paper and physical prices is widening. The gold-to-silver ratio, which measures how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold, reached historic highs in April 2025. Historically, when this ratio gets extreme, silver tends to outperform gold on the way back down. But here's what you really need to understand. This isn't just about making money on silver prices. This is about what happens when paper markets built on leverage and promises collide with physical reality. If the silver market breaks sand, it won't stay contained. Confidence in commodity markets, derivatives, and financial engineering will take a hit. That has ripple effects across the entire financial system. So even if you don't own silver, you should care. Because your pension fund might have exposure, your bank might have derivatives positions, your supply chain might depend on silver availability. When sophisticated institutions are draining 60% of exchange inventory in 4 days, when lease rates spike to 8%, when physical premiums blow out to $8 per ounce, that's not normal market behavior. That's a warning signal. The only question is whether anyone's listening. Let's zoom out for a moment, because this isn't the first time we've seen this movie. The Hunt brothers in 1979, 1980, they attempted to corner the silver market, driving prices from $6 to over $48 per ounce. Then, exchanges changed the rules mid-game, implementing position limits and margin requirements that forced liquidation. Silver crashed from $48 to under $15 within months. The Hunt brothers went bankrupt. 2011, silver rallied to $49, riding the commodity bull market and Chinese industrialization, then crashed back to $15 by 2015, 2020 to 2021. The Wall Street Bets Reddit silver squeeze. Retail traders tried to corner the market by buying physical silver and SLV shares. Premiums spiked, but the price ultimately pulled back. See the pattern? Silver spikes, then crashes. Over and over, it's been called the Widowmaker for a reason. It has massive volatility in both directions. But here's what's different this time. Every previous spike was driven by speculation and leverage. This time, it's driven by structural supply deficits and industrial demand. The solar industry alone is projected to consume 15% more silver annually through 2030. That's not speculation. That's panels being manufactured and installed right now. EVs are already over 25% of new car sales globally in 2025, heading toward 40% by 2030. Each one needs silver. That demand isn't going away. And mine production is declining, not increasing. It takes years to bring new mines online. The supply response is slow. You've never had this combination before: declining mine supply, explosive industrial demand, depleting above-ground stocks, and documented price manipulation that just ended. It's the perfect storm, and we're sailing right into it. Now let's talk about the watchdogs who were sleeping on the job. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, is supposed to regulate these markets, prevent manipulation, ensure fair pricing. For years, people complained about silver manipulation. Whistleblowers came forward. Data showed suspicious trading patterns. Andrew Maguire, a former Goldman Sachs trader, accurately predicted market movements in 2010 by identifying manipulation patterns. He testified that banks would manipulate trading when the Department of Labor released employment statistics. Whether the news was good or bad, they'd tried to drive the market down. The CFTC launched investigations, and investigated. For over a decade, finally, in 2020, they settled with JPMorgan for $920 million. Other banks followed, 10 years. That's how long it took to prosecute manipulation that was happening in plain sight. 10 years of artificially suppressed prices, 10 years of legitimate miners getting squeezed, 10 years of investors getting fleeced. And when justice finally came, 2 traders went to prison. Not the executives who created the culture, not the senior management who profited, just the guys placing the orders. JPMorgan paid $920 million. They're now sitting on silver positions worth $20 billion. The math is pretty simple. This is regulatory capture in action. The industry regulates itself, fines are a cost of doing business. Nobody important goes to jail, and the game continues. So how do you know when the end game is near? Here are the indicators to watch. 1. COMEX registered inventory currently in danger zone. Watch for further declines. If it drops below 30 million ounces, panic mode. 2. Lease rates normal, 0.3 to 0.5%. Current, 8%. Anything above 5% means stress. Above 10% means crisis. 3. Physical premiums. Watch the spread between paper COMEX prices and physical purchase prices. Widening spreads equals physical shortage worsening. 4. Backwardation depth. When near-term futures are significantly more expensive than long-term, it means immediate demand overwhelms supply. 5. Exchange rule changes. Watch for COMEX or CME announcing rule changes. New margin requirements, position limits, emergency measures. That's them trying to contain the crisis. 6. Industrial user complaints. Listen for electronics manufacturers, solar companies, or EV makers complaining about silver availability. They're the canary in the coal mine. 7. Bank position data. Watch for major banks dramatically shifting their positions, either covering shorts or taking delivery. That tells you they know something. As of January 2026, most of these indicators are flashing red or yellow, not green, not stable. Warning mode. The question isn't if something breaks. The question is when and how badly. Look, I'm not here to tell you to buy silver. I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't financial advice. What I am telling you is this. 8 banks paid $1.27 billion for manipulating this market. 2 traders are sitting in federal prison right now. Silver rallied 147% in 1 year after suppression ended. COMEX lost 60% of its registered inventory in 4 trading days. Physical premiums are at historic highs. Lease rates are at crisis levels. You have 2 choices. Blue pill. Listen to Goldman Sachs, Citi, and JPMorgan tell you silver will average $32.38. Believe that convicted criminals running the same institutions are now giving you honest analysis. Trust that paper markets with 100-to-1 leverage are perfectly safe. Red pill. Recognize that the largest manipulation scheme in commodity market history just ended. Understand that paper contracts are increasingly worthless when physical metal disappears. Accept that the gap between paper promises and physical reality is widening every day. The crime has already happened. The criminals already went to prison. The fines have been paid. What we're watching now isn't the crime, it's the aftermath. 820 million ounces of cumulative supply deficit. 5 consecutive years, industrial demand growing 15% annually. Mine production declining. COMEX registered inventory dropping 60% in 4 days. Physical premiums at $8 per ounce over paper. Lease rates at 8%. Wall Street's biggest banks wrong by 100% on price predictions. The same banks that manipulated the market, now holding massive long positions in the metal they spent years suppressing. You don't need me to tell you what this means. The data speaks for itself. The market is fake, the paper is burning, and the physical metal is disappearing. The only question is, when the music stops, will you be holding a chair or a contract? If this documentary just rewired your understanding of how rigged commodity markets are, hit that subscribe button, because this isn't over, not even close. Until then, remember, JPMorgan went to prison. Not for making bad trades, for lying about silver. And they're the ones telling you everything's fine. Trust the data, question the narrative. And maybe, just maybe, consider what you actually own versus what you think you own. See you on the next one.